So yeah, I think there's a oil going through my system. We'll check that turbo and I'll get a compression test on the motor, but boy, look at that. Yep, definitely some oil in there. That's what we had in the intercooler. You can see there's plenty of oil coming out of that intake tract. Yeah. Pushing that much oil past, it's never pushed oil. Yep. The turbo is plenty loose. Go ahead and loosen this oil feed line, and got my coolant lines out of the way, so I just kind of tucked them up out here so they don't leak. And then we'll go ahead and get this feed line out of the way. Again, I like to make sure it's kind of up so that the oil drains down and back in, and then we'll get this turbo blanket out of the way and go ahead and pull the turbo out. Well, I got the downpipe out. You can see there's definitely a bunch of oil in the downpipe as well. Pretty dirty and muddy from drifting, but we'll be able to pull the turb skis out now. We got the coolant lines off, the oil lines off, the downpipe, the intake tubing, and now we just got to pull the turbo. Okay, so we got everything free. I'm going to go ahead and pull this old turbo out. You can see my drain line setup kind of goes out of the front of the turbo. Oops, forgot to detach this wastegate line. So I'm taking a minute to remove all this old heat wrap that I had on my exhaust manifold, and also just really check it out for quality and make sure all the welds are still in place and there's no cracking. And thus far, after 2 years of like hard beating, I'm not seeing any cracking on here anywhere. All right, so I got a good part of the motor torn down. I got the exhaust manifolds off. I have the upper throttle body and the upper plenum of the intake manifold. I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna do a compression test just to kind of see where we're at in terms of how bad this thing is, and kind of go from there. All right, go for it. All right, go for it, number 3. All right, proceed when ready, number 4. All right, go for it. All right. Same. So update on the motor. So Oleg and I checked compression across all 6 cylinders. It was pretty consistent, right around 155, 160 PSI. No issues with compression. And kind of judging by the lack of power, but the fact that I wasn't really smoking. So the car never really smoked. It wasn't, kicking out oil-filled smoke out of the back. So that really leads me to believe that it probably wasn't a ringland. Compression is strong through all the cylinders, and that it was most likely this turbo that failed, or at least is leaking oil out of the, potentially just right out of the intake seal, the thrust bearing on the turbo. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and get a new turbo and put the motor back together. I'm gonna clean up a few things while I have it all apart, and run it and see how it works. Maybe I'll just put a catch can on it. But I believe the motor is healthy after doing the compression test. The plugs look good. So as I saw, the turbo was loose, so definitely an issue I've had with these turbos. I'm gonna just put studs in the manifold now and go from there. But let's get to ordering a turbo, huh? So I have the valve covers off, and I'm going to go ahead and clean them up and put a fresh coat of paint on them and get them back in the car. All right, well, I got the valve covers cleaned up. They actually cleaned up very, very easily with just some Dawn dish soap, water, and a toothbrush and rag. I mean, it actually degreased them very, very well. So I'm gonna go ahead and get them cleaned up and dried up and put some, get some spray paint on them. Well, guys, I have the valve covers off. So as you know, we checked the compression and the motor seemed very healthy compression-wise. I had consistent within 10 PSI in every cylinder. So that leads me to believe that the motor's actually healthy. I got no coolant loss, no bubbles in the coolant. Just the only culprit that I can think it is the turbo itself. I did notice oil leaking down the front of the turbo, just right out of the turbine housing here, just right out of the front of the compressor side. So I believe that turbo, maybe the thrust seal went. So I'm going to replace the turbo, and while I'm in here, pulled the plugs, and I noticed that my valve covers, obviously, as you can tell, and there's a little bit of oil on top of each of the spark plugs, are leaking pretty good. So I'm gonna go ahead and replace those and clean them up a bit. So I've gone ahead and cleaned the valley up a little bit in between the two cams there, and I set the first valve cover back in place with brand new gaskets, and also some high temp silicone in the corners there, just to protect from any oil leakage. And I'm going to get these on and torque them down, move on, get the intake manifold back on. I went ahead and I got the new valve covers and gaskets and plugs in. We have our intake manifold reinstalled with a new gasket here between the plenum and the runners there. So I got my adhesive heat shield in place, which just nice and clean, covers those brake lines really well. And then now I'm actually rewrapping my exhaust manifold in the titanium heat wrap. Pro tip, recommend dipping it in water so you don't get fiberglass splinters in your hands. So we're going to go ahead and take the freshly wrapped exhaust manifold, which I think actually came out really, really nice compared to the last time I did it. I did double wrap this area right here because it gets pretty hot by the intake manifold in this part because it's so close to that runner I couldn't get, but looks pretty good other than that. And I do got the wastegate fully wrapped, which I didn't have last time. So let's go ahead and put this beast in. We got brand new exhaust manifold gaskets, so that should seal up. I also did put a little extra heat wrap on the bottom of this wiring harness. So gonna go ahead and get this exhaust manifold in. All right, so big update. I have got the new turbo in the car. Got my exhaust manifold nicely wrapped. I actually went and got some metal wire ties so I could, make sure it was properly secured. Got the new ball bearing CXracing turbo in there. Really excited to see how this guy does. So this one actually has a 0.81 hot side versus the 0.68 hot side that I had on the other turbo. Got some really nice, nice dense heat shielding in place with some other heat shielding behind there. And yeah, now what I'm going to do is go ahead and get the downpipe in. Go ahead and connect the coolant and oil lines to the turbo and finish up this bad boy. All right, team, just a quick update where we are getting the IS back up and running. So last night I thrashed pretty late into the night and just have to do some connections on my intercooler here. So we just need to connect the upper intercooler pipe, put back together my cam cover here, and double check the oil, and it's ready to start. So hopefully this will all go smooth today. We can get rock and rolling. So I just finished up wrapping everything up under the hood here. Went ahead and got the IS started up just to make sure I have no leaks and that everything's connected properly. Obviously a lot of junk to burn off the exhaust manifold and turbo just from my greasy hands and installing everything, but as of right now the new ball bearing turbo spins like no problem, whereas the other one actually took a little work to make it spin. Looks great, so I'm gonna let it warm up, let everything kind of melt off of it, get it off the jack stands, and we'll go take it for a drive. Alright, so we're taking the IS out for its first journey here, see how it does with a little bit of boost in it with the new turbo, and just make sure everything's running good. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I am sad to say that it wasn't just the turbo. So I got it started back up, got the new turbo back on, got the new valve covers on, and it drives absolutely perfect. Hits boost, air fuel's great, compression checked out. However, it is still pushing a tremendous amount of oil out of this breather line. Like, I've already emptied this, but after one little rip down the street, not even a third gear pull, it's still pushing tons of oil. So we got ourselves a hurt motor. Looks like it's time to do a little building. I sort of knew this was going to be the case, but I wanted to try and go the more affordable route anyway, and just check a few things off the box as I went. But yep, we're going to go ahead and